Hello, I'm Li Ding. I'm assistant professor from Nanyang Technological University in Singapore. I study workers' behavior and incentive structures in platforms. First of all, I'd like to thank the Service Science Best DEIJ paper committee for selecting our paper as one of the finalists. This work is a joint research with Dr. Bashar Kalkanji from Georgia Tech. In this paper, we look at how to reduce gender disparities in online labor platforms. Gender earnings gap is a long-established issue observed in many different industries and professions. As online gig platforms are emerging, many people believe that these new workplaces can support gender equity among workers. This is because compared to the traditional settings, these platforms usually offer greater flexibility in time and location, and tasks on these platforms are more homogeneous. Workers have greater autonomy in their task selections. However, empirical evidence suggests that a gender gap in hourly earnings commonly exists on the platforms such as Uber, freelancer.com, and also mTurk. To understand why there is a gender earnings gap in online platforms, the current literature mostly focuses on the demand side or the employer side, how these factors can contribute to the gender disparities in online platforms, and propose different mitigation strategies that target the demand side. On the supply side, which is a worker side, while there are some studies showing gender differences in their task application strategies, the underlying behavioral drivers and also possible mitigation strategies still remain largely unknown. And these two gaps motivate our study. In this study, we ask first, do gender differences in self-evaluation contribute to the gender earnings gap in online labor platforms? To explore this, we conduct experiments on Prolific, which is a gender-blind platform. Our goal here is to establish the link between self-evaluation, task selection, and gender earnings gap. Next, we also explore what interventions can be leveraged by the platform to mitigate the gap. Specifically, we look at task exposure and performance feedback. We run our experiments on Prolific, which is an anonymous environment, which means that the workers' individual level demographics are not shown in the recruitment process. As you can see on the left-hand side, workers are represented by anonymous IDs. And this is a very important setup in our study because it mutes any potential biases or discrimination from the employer side so that we can focus on the workers' task selection behaviors. We recruited 489 workers for a mass grading task. And this is how our mass grading task looked like. On the left-hand side, we have an easy grading task, which pays lower. We got the questions from a grade 3 level from the elementary school grade 3 level test set. On the right-hand side, we have a more difficult task, which also pays higher. The questions are in grade 5 level. We set different number of questions in these two tasks so that we can make sure the expected completion time remain consistent across these two versions. This way, we eliminate the confounding effect of the expected completion time. We propose two interventions. The first one is task exposure, where we manipulate the worker's previous task experience. In the treatment group, all workers are assigned to a hard and high-paying task, whereas in the control group, the workers can freely decide which task to take on. Our second intervention is performance feedback. So in the treatment group, we provide the workers with the feedback on how well they performed in the previous round. In the control group, we do not provide any feedback. Corresponding to these two interventions, we have a 2x2 design, and we examine the differences in workers' task selection and earnings corresponding to different treatment and control groups. We find that first, women tend to be negatively biased when evaluating their own performance, even though there's no actual differences between men and women. Because of the self-evaluation bias, women are less likely to opt into more difficult tasks, which usually pay higher. And this is one of the factors that contribute to the gender earnings gap in online labor platforms. We also show that online labor platforms present new and practical opportunities to solve this issue. When all workers are exposed to hard tasks early on and receive performance feedback on it, the gender earnings gap is mitigated. This is because women can improve earnings without lowering means. However, performance feedback or task exposure alone is not sufficient to close the gap. We also provide some practical implications for the platform. We know that platforms sometimes intentionally delay sharing performance feedback with the workers or even not revealing it at all to prevent workers from gaming the system. In this study, we show that there are some benefits of sharing unambiguous feedback from the worker's perspective. Also, most of the existing job recommendation algorithms rely on the worker's previous job experiences and also preferences. We show that a more explorative approach can help here. It can be beneficial to proactively expose workers to challenging but capable tasks, which they may not consider otherwise. This is all about our study. Thank you very much.